Who would have thought that a young chemist from Puerto Rico working at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center would ever consider being a priest, and not only that, enter the seminary? Because I can assure you, I certainly didn't at the time I started my faith journey. But interestingly enough, God has a funny way of guiding us to become who He intends us to be. As you can imagine, working at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center must have been full of fun and adventure, and I assure you it really was, and I loved every minute of it. But I felt an emptiness that was not being filled, a hunger that was not being satisfied every day that I lived in this world. And God always places people in our path. And I give thanks that He did that, because He placed a dear family friend, an Army priest chaplain, in my path. This man insisted that I reconnect with my faith, and to this day still fervently prays for me as I do for him. He encouraged me to go on a discernment retreat, even to the point where he just handed me the flight tickets and said, "Here you go, take off." And so I did. The purpose simply to re-encounter my faith and to rediscover who I was as a beloved son of God. And so I did go on that retreat, and I'm grateful for it because I learned so much, and the experiences that I gained from that, I took back with me to spiritual direction. And over the course of spiritual direction through a number of months, I rediscovered a desire, a long-standing desire to help others, to be a bridge, to bring God's healing and His loving mercy to others. And my brothers and sisters, what better way to do that than to be a priest of Jesus Christ? And this prompted me to apply for the seminary. From the moment I began my discernment journey and said yes to the Lord's call, the common denominator, the overwhelming feeling and sense has been joy. And that's not to say that life is not happening, that the ups and downs of life aren't there, because they are. But even in the midst of the ups and downs, the challenging days and the good days, joy is what prevails. And words simply fall short in describing the joy I feel, the peace that I feel, the calm that I feel when I am with the Lord and serving His people. I have experienced that same joy in being a part of not only my own family's life, but also in the lives of all of the families I've encountered and that God has placed before me. And I've seen that not only in the celebration of new life at baptism and weddings, but I've also seen that even when I bring others to the Lord for consolation because of the loss of a loved one. And one particular experience I'm thinking of is of a married couple that I ministered to, bringing them communion for almost a year on a weekly basis. And this family, this couple was homebound because the wife was diagnosed with ALS, such a terrible, deadly disease that left her totally paralyzed and incapable of anything. She eventually lost her speech. But I share this because the witness I encountered was the witness of love from her husband, seeing how he loved her with such a gentle compassion and tenderness, even in the midst of her suffering, her weakness, and her frailty. And in witnessing that, I recalled the words of a professor who told us, seminary formation is a moment of courtship. It's an opportunity to learn who my future bride is, the church, but not only that, but to gaze upon her, not only in her splendor and her glory and her majesty, but also in her weakness, her frailty, her suffering, and her wounds. And he told us this: if you cannot love her the same way Jesus Christ loved her, pouring himself out Eucharistically for her, then you have no business being a priest. I share this because seeing the love this man had for his wife confirmed that I have the desire to have this same love for God's people. I want to have this love for God's people, to give myself wholly to the people that He has placed before me, and to do so with joy, a joy that only can be described if one experiences it. And God willing, that'll be as a priest. My prayer for you is that you continue to pray for vocations, pray for more young men and women to step up, to rise up and say yes to the Lord's call, but especially more young men who will say yes to pouring themselves out Eucharistically for the bride, for the church.